That is the CCNV Shelter. That is the Community for Creative Nonviolence. Excuse me. At the other end of the block, where these cars are coming from, you see the U.S. Department of Labor. That is a large building of which you only see one small portion, but it may actually be closed down soon. DOL is considering moving because that building, like the shelter, which is to the left of the screen, is an older building and not very modern by today's standards anyway. Over here is the U.S. Tax Court, and the building beyond it with the many windows is the D.C. government building, often known as 441. The address is 441 4th Street Northwest, is Judiciary Square. There's an office building, and over here you see 3 tower cranes. You see a shiny blue glass building that's still under construction. The exterior is pretty much completed. There's still work happening on the interior, and next to it you see another building that's going up. This is the Capitol Crossing development. I'll come back to that. But over here is Georgetown University Law Center. This is not the main campus of Georgetown University. It's the main campus is a few miles away. But let me focus on Capitol Crossing and the CCNV Shelter. Now, Capitol Crossing was begun the construction was begun in 2015. What you see here, this ground that's not yet built on, is a platform that was placed over I-395. On the other side of the road, the freeway is an open top freeway, below grade but open top, and so beginning in 2015, they put this platform over 395 and closed off the open top freeway so that it's now underground. And when this project is done, there will be 5 buildings on this platform, 2 of which you're looking at, the blue glass and the one that has no siding on it yet. And because this shelter, just like the Department of Labor building, is an older building built back around 1940, and because this building is not 10 or 12 stories like everything around it, that building is going to be history soon. And there are other reasons as well. So it's an older building, it's falling apart. It's not as high as we can possibly go in this part of town, and it has homeless people in it. And this development, Capitol Crossing, it cost $1.3 billion. The completed project will have 2.2 million square feet of space, and I believe it'll be a mixture of office and retail space. And city officials have assumed that when Capitol Crossing is done, they won't want to look at these homeless people over here. You don't see very much going on outside of that building. For a couple of reasons. One being that it is late October and it's getting kind of cool. Another being that shelter staff make it a point to keep people from hanging out around the building. And so what we have here is a form of gentrification. I guess you can't call it outright gentrification for a number of reasons, but it's definitely a form of gentrification. It's got a major caveat, which is that the homeless are generally not wanted anywhere. So many folk hate homeless people. Well, I hate having homeless people too, but I don't hate them. I just hate the fact that they're homeless and wish that that weren't the case. But that said, we do have this new development which is abutting an older shelter, and that shelter will likely be history by the end of 2022. I've met with the developer and the construction company simultaneously at the end of 2014, and I was told by them that they're aiming for a 2023 finish. And the reason is because with construction, which I've done, by the way, you get cost overruns, you get them going beyond schedule, being late, and when they're late getting the job done, then it actually costs them. I worked on a site in Florida, Universal Studios, by the way, they were adding a 100-ride theme park some years ago near Orlando, and they told me that for every day that they were late, and this was over 15 years ago, but every day that they were late, they had to pay a $7,000 fine. And so Capital Crossing, they want to make sure that they're not late. The fine is probably increased exponentially from $7,000 a day, and so it seems like they're on track to be done in 2023. And that brings us back to the issue of CCNV. But before I get back to that, let me say that this is how the other side of the road used to look before they put the platform up. Now, with Capital Crossing being on track to finish in 2023, I'm guessing that city officials are going to do a favor for Capital Crossing and make sure that this building is no longer open as a shelter. So by the end of 2022, this building will probably be history. It might still be standing, but it'll probably be vacant. And I can imagine that the city will begin around 2020 to talk in earnest about how to get the homeless people out of that building. And you see, in the wintertime, it holds over 1,000 people because 250 of the beds are wintertime only beds. And in the warmer months, it holds 800 people. It used to hold 1,350, but and I'm just talking, well, but that number includes 100 people in the drug program who are not necessarily homeless and who are on the second floor on this end of the building. But of the 1,250 homeless people, actually I should say, 200 of those people have been moved over to Chinatown, which is about 2/3 of a mile in that direction, catty corner from where I'm standing. So that's already happened. And parts of the building are already shut down. So the city is doing a partial shutdown, a piecemeal shutdown, and so I want the public to be aware of this, aware of the piecemeal fashion in which the city is shutting down the shelter. The Franklin School Shelter was shut down in a piecemeal manner several years ago, and then it got down to where they went from 300 people sleeping in that shelter to there being about 40 people on the last night, and then they came in and they just said, okay, we're shutting it down completely. But I won't get into the details of how that piecemeal shutdown went, but do know that when development comes near any residence or shelter where there are poor people, the poor people always worry that they're going to get pushed out, and that has proven to be the case here. Only in this instance, it's not a matter of the rent going up because the homeless don't pay rent here. It's just a matter of the city doing a favor for the developer and for the construction company and for the future occupants of this new development. I will highlight that in my meeting with the developer and the construction company, they emphasized that they have not asked the city to remove the homeless. They also, well, not they, but the now late Councilman Jim Graham indicated that there is a $10 million set aside in that $1.3 billion budget for this 2.2 million square foot project that is for the impact that they might have on the surrounding community, to mitigate any negative impacts they might have. So there may be a way to use a portion of that $10 million to mitigate the impact that this development will have on the homeless. And that is something to bear in mind and something to act on. But I think city officials just kind of want to sweep that thing under the rug and make sure that nobody's aware of it. So now I've thrown it out there to you. But this video is getting rather long, and so I'll stop there.